You ever walk outside in the morning, coffee still hot in your hand, expecting just another day, and suddenly you realize someone's ripped a chunk of your life right out from under you? That's how I found out Brenda from the HOA finally did what everyone joked she might do, but no one actually believed she would. I mean, you hear stories about power-hungry HOA presidents, but you never really think you'll be the main character, right? Guess I was overdue. So picture this February, Elk Ridge, Montana. It's cold enough that your nose hairs freeze if you breathe in too quick. I'm standing in my driveway staring at a spot where my 2019 F350 complete with my custom Snowplow rig should have been. 15 grand worth of essential metal just gone. I actually checked my phone 3 times, half hoping for a text about some emergency recall or hell, maybe a prank. But all I found was this god-awful neon pink paper jammed under my doormat. HOA letterhead. All those curly fonts, the mountain silhouette that looks like a toddler's doodle. Violation notice and equipment seizure authorization. They'd actually taken my truck. I mean, I'm not just some random guy with a big vehicle. My name's Stephen Irons. I've been living in Elk Ridge for 32 years. I run the only snow removal business in the whole damn county, literally the only one. Everyone relies on me, schools, the medical center, all 200 homes in our precious subdivision. In winter here, snow doesn't just fall, it lays siege. And now my main truck's gone vanished overnight because Brenda and her band of clipboard warriors decided my plow was unsightly. You can't make this stuff up. So what do? First thing, I call my lead guy, Marcus. He's barely awake and thinks I'm joking when I say the HOA seized the truck. I wish I was. We've got the elementary school, the medical center, 30 driveways on the books, and another storm barreling in. If you ever want to see a grown man whistle in disbelief, just tell him his whole crew's stranded because of a technicality. The HOA phone just rings and rings. Nobody answers at 6 a.m., not unless you're reporting someone's mailbox is half an inch off level. So I call my lawyer, Tom. He lives 3 doors down and knows Brenda's tricks as well as I do. He listens real quiet, then says what I needed to hear. That's theft. Call the sheriff. So that's what I do. Julie at dispatch picks up. She's known me for years. I plow their lot every winter. Stephen, what's wrong? When I say theft, she doesn't even sound surprised. Hang tight. Deputy's on the way. I step outside, trying not to mess with any evidence. My driveway looks normal, except along the edge you can see the tracks where a tow truck backed in, loaded up my rig, and just drove off like it was a regular Tuesday. And sure enough, my neighbor Paul texts me, "Saw a tow truck at your place around midnight. Everything okay?" Paul's a good guy, but not a night owl. He'd assumed I'd ordered the tow myself. Nope, just the local HOA flexing their muscles. Gary at Mountain View Towing picked up when I called. And he sounded embarrassed because, Brenda had the paperwork, she'd threatened lawsuits, the works. He couldn't give me the truck back without her say-so. It wasn't his fault, really, but that didn't make it easier to swallow. So now I've got a cop, a lawyer, a witness, and a towing company all tangled up in what to me is just a small-town disaster. Deputy Carson shows up, snaps photos, writes notes, tells me point blank that the HOA can't take property without a court order, and what they did is probably grand theft. I wish I could say that fixed everything. But if you've ever dealt with bureaucracy, you know how that story goes, slow, messy, and full of surprises. Back at my kitchen table, I'm writing that special kind of anger that only comes from watching people with a little power mess up big things. Marcus and the guys are doing what they can with backup equipment, but it's not enough. At 8 sharp, I'm in Tom's office, and he's combing through the HOA bylaws. The guy's usually got a joke for everything, but now he's just shaking his head. They can fine you, Stephen. Maybe even put a lien on your house. But seizing your property, they've stepped in it this time. Tom writes a demand letter for Brenda, spelling out all the ways she's broken the law. We drop it off at the HOA office, which, by the way, Brenda treats like her personal throne room. You ever meet someone who looks smug just sitting still? That's Brenda. She tells us the board approved everything and she's just following the rules. Tom isn't having it. He lays down the law. She's got until noon to return my truck or we're going to court. Noon comes and goes. No truck, no apology, just more snow and more panic as the elementary school starts calling 400 kids need that parking lot cleared or it's a safety hazard. I'm calling every equipment rental place within 100 miles, but in peak snow season, even a rusty plow truck costs a fortune. Still, I grab what I can drive 3 hours to pick it up and barely make it back in time to clear the lot before school lets out. I'm running on fumes fueled mostly by caffeine and stubbornness. That night, Tom calls. We've got a hearing scheduled for the next morning with Judge Morrison, who it turns out is the sheriff's sister and not someone you want to cross. I show up at court running on no sleep and too much adrenaline. Brenda's there looking like she's about to fire her own attorney for breathing too loud. Judge Morrison listens to Tom explain everything, then asks Brenda's lawyer a simple question. Do your covenants specifically authorize you to seize property? The lawyer fumbles and the judge doesn't even blink. That's theft, she says, just like that. Orders my truck returned, immediately hits the HOA with a restraining order, and basically reads Brenda the Riot Act. I almost laughed out loud in the courtroom, but of course Brenda doesn't let it go. 3 days later, I get a fine $45,000 for parking my truck at home. Retroactive. I send it straight to Tom, who just sighs and says, they're making it worse for themselves. He files for contempt of court, and next thing you know, Brenda and her cronies are facing a $5,000 fine from the judge with the threat of jail time if they try it again. Here's where it gets good. The community finally snaps. Mrs. Chen, an old-timer who I've shoveled for free since her husband passed, shows up with a casserole and a petition. We're recalling the board, she says. Turns out she's already got signatures from more than 100 families who are sick of Brenda's nonsense. Next thing you know, Pinewood Estates is in full rebellion mode. Flyers go out, stories circulate. Brenda fined a couple $3,000 for a Saturday night wedding, threatened a family over a ramp for their disabled son. People are done. At the recall election, Brenda and her crew are booted out. Mrs. Chen is the new president. First thing she does is drop all enforcement actions against me, then start auditing the HOA books. It's messy, turns out. Brenda had been running the place like her own kingdom, racking up hundreds of thousands in fines. But with the community behind her, Mrs. Chen turns it around. The board apologizes to me in writing and amends the rules so essential work trucks are allowed. They even give me a plaque at the end of winter, thanking me for sticking with them and keeping the roads clear. Tom works his legal magic. The HOA settles for $225,000, covers my costs, lost income stress, you name it. Brenda gets a slap on the wrist, criminally, a small fine, some community service, and a record that disappears if she keeps her nose clean. It's not satisfying. Not really, but it's something. Her reputation. That's another story. Folks who used to keep quiet start coming forward and the stories would curl your hair. In the end, she moves out of town, shows up one afternoon in jeans and a t-shirt, no power suit, no attitude. She actually apologizes right there in my driveway, and you know what? I believed her. I didn't forgive her right away, but I could see she was different. I wish I could tell you justice always works out so cleanly, but it doesn't. It took a smart judge, a good lawyer, and a bunch of neighbors finally deciding enough was enough. Most of all, it took not backing down even when it looked hopeless. That's the lesson I carry with me. Sometimes you have to fight not just for yourself, but for everyone who depends on you and for the principle that the law protects people, not just the powerful. Now life's back to normal. My business is thriving. Mrs. Chen runs the HOA with common sense and kindness. Imagine that. My crew has grown. We serve 3 counties now, and every winter when the first snow hits, I'm out there with my truck cutting through the drifts. Sometimes I pass the community center and there's a sign thanking everyone for making the neighborhood a real community again. If you're listening to this, maybe you've tangled with a petty tyrant or seen how quickly a rule book can turn into a weapon. So let me ask, where do you draw the line between order and overreach? When does following the rules become tyranny? And have you ever had to stand up not just for yourself, but for the principle that some lines shouldn't be crossed, no matter who holds the clipboard? I'd love to hear how you handled it, or what you think justice really looks like when the system is put to the test. Share your story if you've got one. Or just let me know, what would you have done in my boots, staring at that empty driveway holding a pink slip from hell with a blizzard on the way?